I've always wondered who you like. You even look at Twitch like that at all?
I used to watch Twitch.
I sometimes watch Twitch. I know I watch QD a lot because he's still one of my favorite streamers.
I know I have pirate software.
Isn't he under like flannel right now?
Who?
Or is that someone else for the Pokemon thing that's going on?
No, pirate
Oh, I need to
software is
get you
the
guys
video game developer.
I need to send you guys my Pokemon thing.
Ooh, true. DM me that. All right, Chris Pine, you're gonna be our tall tale here. What audio need adjustments?
That's gonna be difficult whenever we have to be speaking, and I have to be listening and knowing what's being said.
Yeah, speak and listen at the exact same time and don't get it wrong.
Kyle, I believe in you.
Listen, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Okay, let's just all remember.
Whoa! Did you just reference Zach Brannigan? I'm so proud of you.
No. He said the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak and spongy. That's what he said.
Oh, dude, Super Meat Boy is on Amazon Prime. I'm definitely gonna get that. Super Meat Boy is like the goat.
Super Meat Boy, huh?
Yeah. Also, I probably should. If someone clicks on this, I doubt I'm gonna let BS happen.
I need to be turned down
You
because I
need to be
think you and
turned.
Evan are now at the same audio. It's
Okay.
just I can't listen to myself and know.
I'm gonna put you at 150. Also, did I just hear you or me? I just hear.
I've heard the very first signs of schizophrenia is when you start asking yourself that.
Me or the other me?
Hey, that's
Did I
just on
just
multiple.
hear? It's the
Me?
Spider-Man meme. You're pointing
Me?
every direction.
You? Me?
Did I just hear me or me or me or me?
Hello, me. Meet the real me.
What do you guys think of the title?
The late Halloween before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, because we're gonna be talking
It's all
about
right.
soupy. Sorry.
Spookies.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about the
Yeah.
supernatural today. So I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this Halloween topic right before Thanksgiving.
All right.
It said Thanksgiving. Killing.
Oh, Thanksgiving. Oh, well, we do kill turkeys.
I like that.
There's a
Thanksgiving.
movie called
Thanksgiving.
that.
I mean, is that gonna censor you on Twitch though? I don't think it should, but
That's a good ass question. I've never had
it will on
YouTube.
on YouTube probably.
We'll say that for next year.
All right. So what if I go to YouTube right here and type in Thanksgiving? It's probably gonna pull up the movie.
There's a movie called Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Enough delays.
There's
Heaven.
3 Thanksgiving movies.
Jesus.
That's cool.
That's it's like watching Nazi. What's it called? That Frozen Nazi movie.
There's a Frozen movie.
Frozen Nazi zombies. Let me look it up. Dead Snow. It's called Dead Snow. I think it has more than one film. Yep. Yep. There it is. Dead Snow and Dead Snow 2. Red versus Dead. Oh my god.
All right. All right. I can tune in
Wow.
back to whatever we're talking about.
Wow. This really is the Halloween episode. We're talking about freaking Nazi zombies and snow. Heaven. Cue intro.
Hmm. Uh, What's up, fam? My name is the Elementalist, or Heaven, whatever you want to call me. And welcome back to 2.5 Dads. We are on episode 4. We're talking about Halloween and other scary things, this time at least. I am joined by my lovely and amazing dear friends. I'll let them introduce themselves.
I am Crispin 500.
I'm
I
about to say,
exist.
speak. I ain't going first. I'm Nexus. How you doing?
Yeah, this is all unrehearsed. We don't know who's going who.
Nailed it. You nailed it. It was great. Anyways, welcome. It should be a lot of fun. Nexus has some good talking points for us. We'll see how things go. Hopefully, you guys enjoy this episode. If you do, like and share on YouTube. Subscribe.
I've been
Tell us
meaning
nice
to look at that,
things.
actually. Yeah, I need to go look at that later. So, 2 points today. First is this is gonna be the first time we're talking about one solid subject instead of a couple, because it's gonna be based around one thing that's gonna branch off into many things. Because it's all based around the same idea. And secondly, I already thought of the actual topic for the next episode. I'm starting to plan ahead of things. Like a
Nice.
proper person should. Me being a proper adult, crazy. So today we're going to talk about the supernatural in general, whether it's real or not, and our experiences with it. And the idea of, I talked to Kyle about this, and I told you some small things about it. Haven't the idea of the tulpa and the mind itself. So first things first, Heaven, how much do you know about the tulpa?
The tulpa.
Yeah.
So basically, I just know that it's kind of just like they're essentially just paranormal beings that can be explained through spiritual practices, all that stuff like that, out of body things.
So the grand idea for the tulpa is when a bunch of people think of one thing, it will become real. That's the oversimplified generalization of it. And the reason I came up with this idea of us talking about it is because I was watching a video. Ironically, it was by a former Sunday school teacher watching a horror series about a tulpa. And he brought up the idea that a bunch of people were scared of something, and then what they were scared of wasn't real, but then because they were scared of it, they made it real. I was like, I want to take that idea and spin it. So, first and foremost, what do you think of the idea of creating things based off mass hysteria, essentially?
Mass
You can
hysteria
go
or
first,
mass
Mr.
just thought
Crispon.
will?
We can probably say,
I've reading up on it right now, and I have some very, very interesting opinions. So I will go last.
I want to say I'm saying mass hysteria because mass fear does breed a lot of things, even if it's not real. It doesn't even have to be a tulpa to be to make things kind of real. Everyone can
What do you
think
mean
they
by
have.
mass fear?
Typically, the way it
So
works is that if everyone's afraid of something, it will then become a thing. I'm going to speak about an idea of this later, but
Do you have an example?
uh, I, oh yeah. So, do you
Sorry,
remember?
I'm sorry. I'm thinking. I just that would be good if there's not an example, because I'm thinking like, what things do people have mass fear of, right?
Do
Like
you,
if I have mass fear that, like, let's just, I mean, we
the
don't need to get
basilisk.
political. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like so like there's that, or like if we have mass fear that the sun's gonna go out tomorrow, or Y2K, right? The world's ending in 2000. Does that make it real? No.
So that might be a little different because that's a modification to what's already materialized. The concept of a tulpa is something gets materialized out of the practice through intense concentration of just thinking about it, and then the masses that pour into that also think about it contribute to that in a sense. And having something as
So
mass
it's like
hysteria,
it's the creation of that like a human-ish kind of invisible entity that people are all afraid of. It's like if everyone's afraid of the ghost of Abraham Lincoln and everyone is afraid of it, then a tulpa suggests that there is an invisible entity that will be created that is taken after that fear.
Yes.
Okay.
The first time I've actually seen that concept was actually in Supernatural. There was an episode. I think this is how Nexus brought it up to me, but it was in Supernatural where you have these ghost hunters hunting all of the supernatural. They come to this place and they're finding these folklore or these spooky rumors that go through the entire town and find that it's kind of true, but there's no backstory that's actually backing up why these things are come to be. They're just there. And then
Mm.
I think in the show they actually had symbols that would actually kind of uh I guess amplify the powers of a tulpa. Symbols and just different markings on a wall that just happened to be graffiti because people wanted to make it spooky, but somebody actually made the symbol to amplify the idea of a tulpa. And there was a spooky house that housed the tulpa. But in the show, I believe they were able to influence how they were able to fight the ghost by spreading rumors about the ghost, and that would change the actual characteristics of the tulpa. If I remember correctly. Is that correct, Nexus?
It's been so long since I've seen that episode, but yeah, the whole like they were like, how do we fight something that everyone creates just by thinking about it too much? We cause them to change the narrative of it, at least. Which it's a fun idea because I was I did not tell you about this, but I was telling Kyle about something that's kind of similar in Japanese mythology. There's something called the Kotodama, which is the power of words, and it's not the same thing. Essentially, instead of thinking about it, if you were to, it's the power of words. Spraying a rumor will create things.
If I remember Kotodama, it's that names, or not names, but that the things that you say have mystical energies or powers around them,
Yep.
To
and
that
So
that
point,
go
to
ahead.
that point, like the Kododama, that could even be taken to like mundane examples. Like you have a teacher in high school that say, "You're always bad at school. You're always bad at math," and they're always praising this other person that's all saying they're good at math. Well, the idea that people are uplifting and pushing forward characteristics to these impressionable people actually come to fruition because of that influence.
so okay.
So it could be from the mundane to the supernatural.
So I think that I am very superstitious for a lot of reasons. As far as tulpas go, at least I mean, and then like the whole thought of like words and energy, I think that a lot of that is self-fulfilling prophecy. For example, if you find what you're looking for in life, right? Like if a person is super like conspiracy theorist and like like there's no real birds, they're all machines. You'll start to see every bird as a machine, and every single thing that you see around that relates to that or that relates to the government, you'll start to see that, and your brain will start to wire it because that's the lens that you're looking through. Right now, whenever we like, let's start with Japan, then I'll go to the tulpa stuff. So like Japanese like what is it called? The we just said it. Kododama. So like if I sit there and I tell myself that I am scum and that I don't deserve happiness, and I tell myself that enough, those are the things that are told to the subconscious mind, and that is what is going to end up being replicated by new thoughts, and my body will start to do the same. Or like let's say you're trying to do a kickflip in skateboarding, and you tell yourself you can't do it. It's a lot harder to do it because your body starts to react with the words that you say, and those become self-fulfilling prophecies. We tell ourselves all the time in sports, like whenever I was playing in college soccer and volleyball, like you don't talk negative about yourself because the power of words is not necessarily in the words themselves, unless we get into the spiritual side of it. But like let's get into the mental side of it. The power of words on the mental side of it is that if you tell your brain at something enough, that it'll start to carry it out, right? And this even has like ramifications in the physical realm as well as the mental and the spiritual. Now that you can get to the whole thing of like, okay, so what about, so that's the mental side of power of words. What about the spiritual side of words, right? So you can't like, we can't talk about like kind of the occult or like the, or any of those things that like, you know, are kind of paranormal-esque without getting into like this spiritual side, because like how in the world did God make the world? And you know, he spoke and things were, right? He didn't wave a magic wand. It was his words that carried the power, you know. And then like you hear of healings, you know, you read that stuff like in the Bible and in the Book of Mormon, those kind of things, where like there's healings that happen, or in other, you know, books of you know, from other faiths, there's healings that happen, and it happens through the prayer of faith, through people's words. And so like there's that stuff too. So I think that those things can also be not slanted as much, but interpreted differently by different cultures. And I think maybe that's where Kodadama has some stuff, because both of those subject or those sides, like that mental side and that spiritual side, are true. But like then we get to like the tulpa, right? So like if I start to think, sorry, this is just a random rant. Like I think about this stuff all the time, not the tulpa stuff, but just like spiritual stuff. Uh, but like if I am afraid of like a ghost or something, right? And I have a lot of people and I tell them about this very particular thing, my words, and because it relates actually to this Kodadama thing, my words prime their mental faculties to look for certain things. And then whenever things happen, they will begin to interpret that through that lens. So when I was living in South America, for example, when the house would creak, people would not say, "Oh, the house is settling." They would say, "Oh, it's a spirit." Well, why? Because whenever I'm here in the States, that'd be very different. Like the house settles, like even Bronte, like she's like there's a click in the house, and she's like, "Oh, the house is just settling," or difference in temperature, right? Whereas I'm just like, "Oh, is there a spirit there?" You know, I look for
Right.
different things because I've been told to look for different things. You know, now my experiences can impact that, right? But so like if you have enough people that culturally, because I think, what is this tulpa thing? It's, where is it from?
It's from
Buddhism, Tibet.
yes.
Right, perfect. So, like, if we look at even the culture of Tibetan peoples versus our culture, versus like the culture of Africa or the culture of Mexico, or like more like Western countries such as like European stuff, or like the United States, which of those people are more spiritual versus non? Like, you can say in a broad sense, but like let's use the whole thing of like the house creaks. Would a person living in Illinois think, "Oh, ghost," or would a person living in the middle of Africa think, "Oh, ghost"? You know, like you can be like, well, one person's probably going to be a lot more superstitious than the other, and so like you can start to think that, well, maybe the culture of Tibetans are that. Maybe they're not more like the, oh, you know, there's a difference in the science, in the temperature that's going on. That is something that's mystical and paranormal, and so whenever they hear those things and see those things and talk about those things, they're already primed to think about it in a certain way, and so their experiences are then created and melded around that thought that they have. Now, I'm not saying that that's the truth, but I do know that that is a truth. I'm not saying that, you know, like
It's
that
like
Tulpa's.
there's a heavy possibility of confirmation bias.
Yes, confirmation
It's
bias and self-fulfilling prophecies. 100%. Yeah, that's those two. I think, yes, yeah. So that's actually a perfect point. Like that confirmation bias right there is probably, you've hit the nail right on the head. And then like we self-fulfill our prophecy in the things that we think, right? And so like that's something that I immediately thought of. But it really, Nexus, you actually did a very good job of linking to these two topics, because I think that they're very inextricably linked, because the words that people use actually do have a lot of power, because we create things with our words. Like the Lord of the Rings was created because someone put words down on paper in a certain pattern, and a world was born, right? And so like words do definitely have power to create. And so whether or not the thing that they create is real is different. then that is like Chris Brown was saying, like that is different because there's things that existed pre our belief in them, regardless of what we think, and then there's things that do we bring into being. Like I can be terrified of the tiger that's standing in front of my fridge. It's not there, but my fear is real. So like it's an interesting thing. Sorry, that was a massive word dump. Thanks for coming to my TED talk, everybody.
There's something I want to bring up because when I was thinking about all this, I remembered one of my favorite horror movies and how for some like they kept adding to the lore of the damn movies. It's one of the really old ones that have a lot of them. And then eventually at one of the last films, they added something that basically kind of ties into what we're talking about. You guys definitely both know him. Freddy Krueger. Uh, if you ever seen Freddy versus Jason, uh, at the very beginning,
Never seen Freddy versus Jason.
ooh, what ends up happening is Freddy in the very beginning he explains how powerful he was, how much he did, but then eventually he was forgotten, and as he was forgotten, he lost all power. And throughout the movie, his goal is to make people remember him, so he gains power again. And it kind of comes from the
Yeah,
same
I like
depths.
that movie.
I like it because it's hilarious, but I hate it because I'm like, these horror icons, I need them to kill more. um, but seeing that, I was like, so he basically works on the same concept. He needs people to say, people to talk about him, people to like think about him in order for him to actually exist. He did exist. It's just that without them, he can no longer be here, which kind of
Freddy's
makes
power is not reality. It's the perception of reality though. That's his whole character.
yep.
He kills with fear, and so like there's been people that have really looked into it. They're like, well, like because like there's like the power of mental fortitude. Like someone can get cut or like be hypnotized and be like, hey, I'm gonna hypnotize you and you're not gonna feel any pain whenever I cut you, and they don't. And so some people have speculated, at least with Freddy's character, they're like, well, if these people believe that he's real enough, whenever if they see this or this other paranormal entity and then he slashes them, their mind makes it real, and so they're slashed in real life, which is an interesting concept when you think about it. Again, Kotodama.
I can't remember, but is Candyman something of the same sort?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Have you seen the movie?
It's been a long time,
Well,
but
which
I
movie did you
faintly
see?
remember the old
That's
one.
better question.
Oh, the old one. The new one, I think, did a very good job of showing that.
I think
At
I
least
might have
in
seen the new one as
reaction,
well.
in relation to the main character. The
Gotcha.
main character, I think, has that concept surrounding him, whereas everyone else is just like, "Oh, Candyman's here." Blah.
Oh, so if we
So it is
also
kind of funny because talking about shows where Tulpa concept or Kododama comes up, the first thing that actually came to my mind was SpongeBob.
Whenever they're using the power of imagination.
Yes, the power of imagination, and he's playing in the box, and Squidward's like, "It's just a box," and you just hear all these like pirate swords and robot lasers going on with Patrick
listen, we're
and
not
SpongeBob hanging out in
going
the box.
to space. We're not about to 3, 2, 1 and a damn
No,
box.
that's a good point. The greatest prison that exists in the world is the prison of the mind. Like
And
it really is.
we're
Call
we're
it a
not going to get into
labyrinth
that.
because an imagination's not quite a prison unless you make it a prison. It's more so a
Hellraiser.
labyrinth.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, but if you make it that way, it's crazy. Like if you can have two people sitting in a prison cell and have two totally different realities and dispositions. That's why I love. Have you guys seen the movie Sucker Punch?
I have not.
Not
Okay,
my
so
favorite.
Sucker Punch, kind of spoilers. I loved it. It's one of my favorite movies. Not because it was necessarily well done, but because the concept that they were trying to get across was incredible. So basically, it's a movie that if you're like, hey, you want to see like girls kick butt and kind of be that, not dressed as much as they probably should be. That's the movie you go for. But spoilers for the movie, anyone that's listening to this. But like, so at the very very beginning of the movie, something really bad happens. The main character is put into an insane asylum. By her estranged father-in-law that did something terrible. She saw and knew some things about the truth, and so he wants to give her a lobotomy to take her out and make it so she cannot tell the truth. So whenever she's there in this insane asylum, she meets other women that have been put there for various reasons, and so they all decide that they're going to try to escape. And they have to do these extraordinary feats to be able to get through certain like areas, but they're anxious, they're scared, and so what they do is they convince themselves that they are warriors. And what the movie does is that it literally like it puts them into a battlefield that doesn't exist, that is an allegory for what's actually going on. So like they're all dressed in this medieval armor and they have swords and they're going and they're fighting and they're winning, and then they have a boss, and this boss they fight it and they beat the boss, and then whenever reality kicks back in, you realize that this boss was actually one of the orderlies that was trying to give them medicine, and they were able to make it so that they didn't take the medicine like he wanted them to. So they beat the boss. But it brings up a really interesting concept of how a person sees reality and how they can overcome certain hurdles in reality by switching to a reality that is their own. And that is why I really like that movie.
Kind of makes me
I
think of the animals that get like not chained up, but tied to a post, and then you take them off the post, and they just will never walk away or run away because they're
Horses
just
and
too
oh
used to
donkeys.
being tied.
there's a phrase, there's a name for that actually. Ah, fuck, I learned about that the other day.
This is just my you guys. These topics are my realm. Like this is what I've done for the past 10 years. Like, this is my jam.
You
I
know, it'd be kind of funny to think about
Hmm.
uh-oh.
video games being as a sense of a tulpa. People that put so much concentration and energy into the thought process of a world that they created in their own video game.
Yes, because I
I
want
think they
League of
are.
Legends to be real.
I think that as far as Tulpa, the idea of Tulpa, because from what I understand, Tulpa is it creates like that is supposed to create a humanoid presence, but from the belief of many people. Um, but I think that along similar lines, I think you're right. I think that a person can create a world, but it goes along with the whole Kodadama thing, even like your reality begins to be shaped by the things that you're seeing and you're wanting to see. So like if you love Pokemon, then like whenever you look at, you know, you look at a mountain, you think, "Huh, I wonder if a Tyranitar would be running around here." Those are the things you think about first, right? Or like whenever you daydream, you think about what your reality that you see, what the world like Earth would look like if you had Pidgeots and other things flying through the sky, or what kind of magical things would they be able to do. But like if you have a video game, not all video game, I think some video games are harder to do this with than others, but like Skyrim, like I live in where there's a lot of mountains, and sometimes the mountains have that mist and fog on the mountains themselves, and that is so Skyrim. Like
Suddenly, you
it's
see a floaty skeletal man that has a mask and a staff.
yes, things like that, and like obviously like you see it in your mind's eye, not your physical eyes, but you see it in your mental eyes.
Oh,
It's actually
It's
kind of
really
unfortunately, my
funny that
cool.
third
you brought
eye.
up Pokemon because I remember as a kid playing through Gold and Silver, and I was sitting there stuck in the Alpha Ruins just trying to find out whatever the secret was because there was no internet. I couldn't have a peace of mind and go on the internet and be like, oh, there's nothing there. It's just me being there for hours on end trying to figure it out to the point where we go on a road trip and I'm just sitting there like, I keep hearing unknowns in the background. And then my parents
Is
looking
that
at me like,
unknown M
you
or is that unknown B?
and then my stepdad and my mom at the time looking at me be like, yeah, you need to stop playing your games.
I mean, what is D&D but pure imagination and role play? Think about like D&D. Like D&D is one of the greatest if you're able to get into it, it is one of the greatest ways for a person to create a world and step inside it and have that world have literally no like written components. It is purely spoken and imagined. Now, people can create that world after the fact, but I mean, take Critical Role's campaigns. They weren't writing that at the time, they were talking it. And people that would listen to it literally stepped into that world, which is really cool. And so I think you do the same thing with Pokemon, especially if you're just sitting there thinking about it and talking about it. Like I love Pokemon. Like when I die and I'm like, hey God, listen, I have an eternity to live. Can you teach me how to make some Pokemon or something? I think that's an amazing world to kind of like get into and just see what happens.
See, I like how we're all thinking about Pokemon, but like, no, the idea of the Tulpa becomes real. Give me my Digimon any day of the week. I'll take Greymon right now.
Hey, I love Digimon too.
I don't need no Charizard. I need my dinosaur. I need my Agumon.
I think one of the most valid candidates that can really put people into hysteria for that I think might be the very concept of a tulpa is the basilisk.
Also, like Basilisk, which Basilisk from which lore? I guess I should ask.
Not
I'm
Roku.
talking about I'm talking about the basilisk in the sense of the theory where I'm sure Nexus knows about it, but do you know about the basilisk?
Roku's Basilisk, yeah.
I know lores and like mythological senses of basilisk, but I'm not sure about a theory of a basilisk.
So this basilisk is different.
He's talking about the
what would this be?
It's kind of the concept of we're advancing in technology and progressing as a society to a point to where we're going to have an AI and we're going to create that AI that becomes so powerful that it could actually impact the future and the past in the sense that if you don't contribute to the creation of this basilisk, then horrible things would happen to you in a sense.
So Terminator-esque kind of stuff?
Yeah, very much. Terminator-esque, but it's like yeah, I think it might exactly be the concept of the Terminator, but just more ambiguous.
Well, the other half of it is what you're forgetting. If you do create it, nothing horrible will happen to you, but you will be a slave to that machine now. That will make you a slave as a type of reward for making it come about.
Interesting.
So the idea comes from, do you want to fight or do you want to create so you're not done horrible things to?
And the reason why it's called a basilisk is because once you hear about it and you're aware of it and you're not contributing to its creation actively, you're suddenly in its gaze, and then you could be in the effect of the basilisk.
How much of that again is confirmation bias and self-fulfilling prophecy? Like how much of that is you see what you're looking for?
Oh, it's a paradox.
No, it's not so much a thing that you see to be, it's more so a theory.
Oh, okay.
It's to make you go paranoid.
Yes.
Well, paranoia is incredibly powerful.
Like, there's actually something I wanted to bring up on the same thing. It's the idea. Okay, so we're not. This is going to be kind of the topic for next time, but I'm bringing it up because it's relevant to now. I was literally watching a video on it this morning. So, of course, the universe exists, blah blah, and people always want to assume that there is like a secret power or a secret force running the strings in the background, lizard people and all that, the shadow governments and everything.
Flying spaghetti monster.
Thank you. My favorite.
Bless you.
Yeah. So I was watching a video on it. It's not them saying it's real or anything. It's them saying this exactly. The greatest way for any government, for any body in power to throw you off is to create an idea to throw you off. And in reality, there is no such thing. So, example, there is no shadow government. The reason why people think about it, the government created it in order for you to be thrown off to be looking for one while they just do what they please. Giving that power to the mind again. And I like that idea.
So, have you
Getting
heard of a panopticon?
the word sounds familiar.
Okay, so panopticon, it was championed by a guy I think named with the last name of Foucault, I think. So the panopticon, the concept was actually created for prison systems. So whenever we talk about how to control a population, there are various levels of control that work with varying degrees of effectiveness, right? If I want to control a population, I can do so with a heavy hand and use military. I can do so by putting them into like kind of factory things, putting them to work, and then having foremans or bosses over them. I can try to do propaganda. One of the things, the most effective form of of control and exercise of power to get a group of people to think and do what you want them to do is to convince them that something is true and they will police themselves. For example, with panopticons, how it is, you guys can look it up, but look up panopticon prison. And what you'll have is you'll have a prison that is a circular thing with in the middle of this circle there is a tower, and there are guards in this tower, quote unquote, and this tower has windows that you cannot see into, but all of the things are in the bigger circle for the prison cells have windows that anyone that is in that tower can look into the window of that cell. Now, I as a prisoner do not know if a guard is looking at me or not. If he's looking at me and I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, then oh crap, I'm in trouble. But I can't tell if he's looking or not. And so that fear keeps me from doing certain things. It's like it's the whole concept of Big Brother, right? Like, oh gosh, I don't want to go on. I don't want to click on this porn site link because what if Big Brother's watching me and he uses me for he uses this for for dirt against me. That's a little bit conspiratorial, but it's the same concept, and so it keeps people from doing that be out of fear. Not that that's not the best example because obviously people don't care. They're like, oh, porn.
You can call it Schrodinger's police.
Yeah, there you go. Schrodinger's police. You could also say it like that. But how that relates to kind of like control is you get people to believe something to be true, and they will start to police themselves, right? They will start to act accordingly. Like not to get
Exactly.
political about it, right? But like let's say, let's say, sweet, everyone like Trump is Hitler, and they try to say it enough so that people will start to act on it, and all of a sudden you have people trying to murder him because they believe that he's Hitler, regardless of the truth that he probably isn't. He's been in the presidency before, and he wasn't Hitler then. You know, you see this.
Some other people might think otherwise.
Yeah, some other people might think otherwise, but like, I mean, if he was really Hitler, do you think Joe Biden would have been so happy and smiling to give the White House over to Hitler again? Do you really think that all these other news media outlets that would have been like, no, we can't accept this election? Are you kidding me? We're putting Hitler into the White House. There's the narrative is shifted in a lot of ways. Again, I'm not wanting to get political, but it's an example, right, of a narrative that said people believe it, and so they start to act and think and see everything with it, and they act accordingly to it. You could do it in the same way of like Cold War fear, right? If you tell people enough that Russia is this Cold War, it could be true too. It doesn't have to be something imaginary. It could be true. But if you tell people that stuff enough, then they start to police themselves about it. Like you can see this in how Romania's communistic government did things. So they would have informers throughout the populace. Like 1 in 10 people was an informer that would talk to the government about stuff. And they would tattle on their neighbors and their family, and the neighbors and their family would just disappear and die. And so because of that reality, people started to they knew about it. The government didn't disseminate it, but the resistance stuff that fought against that government knew about it, and so the whole populace as a whole started to not talk to each other about anything. And so if you go over there today, that stuff is still there because they've policed themselves in such a way that they don't open up or say the things that they think and feel to anybody else that they know. Isn't that interesting? I don't know. I think it's interesting. But
Just
I'm a
a
weirdo.
lot of conversation about the power of the psyche, and it's a lot of like the paranoid, the anxiety, the anxious pieces to the power of the psyche. And I think a lot of people need to understand that there's a lot more in their hands than they give themselves credit for.
Oh, I think you're 100% correct.
Yes, because like when I hear people talk about how I'm gonna get all weird about this. When they open their third eye and they say that, we had mystical powers helping us build the pyramids and everything back then, I'm like, you do realize that we're really smart and humanity's really goddamn good at what they do. And we did in fact make all those things thousands of years ago. There's no secret to it. We know how we did it. It's just a simple fact that for some reason people today just can't like imagine that concept. And like I think with the rise of everything and technology, people have just become less creative and they just can't imagine doing things on that scale anymore. At least they think it's
Well,
impossible for them to do
I
things like
think
that.
with the pyramids example, it's we have greater technology than the Egyptians did, and we would struggle to build pyramids like they did if we use the technology that we believe they had.
The
I
And
technology
will.
so I
they had
think,
was slaves.
yeah,
Forced
the
labor.
technology they had were the Israelites. like
Many,
that was what
many
they had.
Israelites.
And
For
so
And
thousands of
pulley
years.
systems. They had pulley
it's
systems back then, right?
Yeah.
yeah, they definitely did.
Yeah.
But even looking at it, I can see why people get mystified by how did they do this. I think that there is a practical way about it. I don't think that the pyramids were built by supernatural means, but I can
Just a
see
lot
and
of
understand
effort.
why people might think that. That's
A
just my
lot of
opinion.
effort, a
Maybe
lot of
it
time.
was.
It's not just the pyramids. There's even things like other places. I need to like cathedrals. People look at cathedrals. I'm like, how did we make that? We didn't make that. That wasn't made by us. I'm like, they literally made that in the span of 800 years. It took them that long to make it. Yeah, we made it. It just took a long time, but we still made it. Like I sit here and I wonder sometimes how a stonemason feels whenever they hear this shit.
Well,
It's just people don't actually practice stonemasonry these days, and they use tools to do these things, so they don't know what it's like to do it by hand.
It makes me sad.
yeah. I There is something to be said again since we're talking about supernatural things as well. If God told a person to build something a certain way, do you think that that building would be incredible and beyond a couple of our understandings, right? So, like for example, let's look at some of the Native American structures. Uh, that were so precise. Like look at like some of the Aztecs, some of the Mayans, some of the Olmecs. The some of these temples that they built, how they built them mathematically are to a degree of soundness that is insane. Not only that, but like it corresponds to the astral calendars that the sun will actually shine into a by a particular spot in that temple at x time of the year perfectly. Like people are like, whoa, how'd they do that? Like there's a couple of explanations. There's one, they were just super advanced and they knew a lot more than we give them credit for, which is probably true. At the same time, like what if they were inspired on how to build something?
Yeah,
What
they
if a
just
higher
imagine
power
it
inspired them
seamless.
how to build something and that like they didn't necessarily know about all those amazing things that all went into it? They knew that it was good and they were inspired to build it, but we nowadays um, realize and can appreciate just all the stuff that goes into it because we have a higher understanding and we look at that and then that's what that dichotomy that appears,
Like
right? They're like,
this.
were they inspired when they built it or did something else happen?
I brought up a picture. This is something that to help you with that. terrace farms. They don't really exist anymore, but they to me are like they are a marvel to look at. When you see a
Oh, I love
terrace
terrace
farm,
farms.
when you see a terrace farm or like a big one into the mountainside, the old ones, they look so great. They look marvelous, and they're
They're
really good
still
for
used
agriculture.
today.
I don't see many.
Well, a lot of them are in China right now. You have like
Oh, that's
because those are
right.
a lot of the rice fields. You'll see certain steps like that in South America, like in Peru. Like I saw them all the time whenever I was down there. They're not used in the same way anymore, but you can see the remnants there because they were created that way. But you do see that stuff a lot in like Asian countries.
Something funny I see is like whenever I think of ancient terrace farms like this, and I look at them, they look great. I hear someone be like, "Those look like giant steps that were used by large people back in the day." I'm like, "Were they? Wait, what?" It
That's
it's so funny.
a weird logic to approach that with.
Yeah, because it's once again it's one of those things where people can't believe that we did this, or for some reason that, or who we did this for. Instead of just being for farming and agriculture, we did this for the giants that were existing back then. All
I
I
mean,
think about
also, if
is,
we were to make steps going up, they have to lead somewhere. A lot of these just
yeah,
don't lead anywhere.
a lot of them lead over the mountain. I'm like, I guess they're stepping to go across. I don't know. I kind of want to build a terrace farm now. Oh, wait. Oh, example of what Heaven was talking about. I wish I had a lot of land to the point where I could do this. This looks actually pretty fun.
I had a lot of land. I would create a garden for moths.
What?
If I
You
had a lot of
Mothman?
land, I would actually set up a whole bunch of storage units.
Storage units.
Yeah, storage units and then rent them out.
Oh,
Oh, I think my uncle actually showed me a concept of that. It was like where you take storage units and you like weld them together and turn them into houses.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it's more affordable than whatever nonsense is going with the housing market and renting
The
market right
uh-huh.
now.
And that's what I think is cool. Because like it, not only that, but you can just earn like it's a really interesting business thing, I think.
now, Heaven. This
Mhm.
last question before we stop because we're at 47 minutes and I'm going to be going downstairs at the hour mark. This last question is something I proposed to Kyle. He already told me his opinion, and I wanted to get your opinion on it because it's a big one. So
Okay.
when I was talking to him about the Tulpa, I had a little idea pop into my head about supernatural in general. So
Okay.
so as you know, I'm a Buddhist and I have my own beliefs. We don't really do much in terms of, the gods and whatnot. So, but I am first and foremost a person of science. I do like to, seeing is believing stuff. I need to see to believe it. Whenever I hear things, I need to, see facts, see proof, etc. You know. So when I was thinking about the thing of the tulpa, I came up with a little idea. I told Kyle. So for you, if the idea of the tulpa is real, is all supernatural things in the world the idea of the tulpa, or is all supernatural things real without the tulpa, and the tulpa itself is real?
You have to go through the question immediately as A, is there a God? And B, if there's a God, does that mean that the God has angels? And if there is a God, does that mean that there's a devil? And if there's a devil, does that mean that there are demons? So that is either a yes or no question. There can't really be a maybe on that. Like people can say a maybe because it's kind of a sketchy thing to believe in, right? But if it's true, if there's a devil, there are demons. If there's a God, that means that there's a life after death, right? It kind of comes with that, right? So tulpas aside, is man creating these things, or did man have a creator? And so I think that's the central question you have to answer before that. For me, Heaven, I almost said my real name. I don't really care if I do. Anyways, but for me, 100%, there's a supernatural. There is another world that exists apart from whether or not we want to believe it or not, right? Like there are demons. and they are good spirits too, right? They 100% exist. I've encountered them. It is crazy. I 100% know that they do. Um, it's crazy to think about. No amount of my thinking about something could change the fact of things that I saw too, right? And so like for me, like seeing is believing is not quite my take on things, because how, like, I can't see the wind, but I can see it operating, right? I can't see gravity, but I can see it in motion, you know? And so whenever I'm like, well, is something else true? Well, what are the things that point to its truthfulness? You know, and if we think about supernatural things, you know, you look at a lot of, you know, people are always like, well, I want some amazing thing. Well, there's also small things too, right? Little miracles. Look at a child being born and the woman not dying. Like, goodness gracious, what a miracle that thing is. You know, like, or if you've ever been at the bedside of a person that's died, someone that you cared about, and they close their eyes for the last time, and then you sense that something left their body that was there before and now isn't. It's not simply that they got old and then they just closed their eyes and never opened them again. Their soul left. It's not there anymore. And so, you know, there's small things like that at least in my view, that are evidence of another truth that is greater. And so when I think about supernatural stuff, again, I've seen that kind of stuff, and you know, there's definitely explanations for it, but I 100% believe that no amount of people wishing or believing anything into existence will ever take away the fact that there are beings that exist on the good side of the spectrum and the bad side of the spectrum in a realm that we can't quite see. And there are times and moments when that realm touches ours, whether it be through those beings' wills or not. I don't know, but it definitely happens, and it raises some really interesting questions. There you go. Is that an okay opinion for you? For you, maybe
No,
it's a
no,
hot
no,
take, but I'll die on that hill.
no, it's fine. I like it because for me, it's I believe in. I first of all, like I said, I believe in science, but I also believe in, and I'm bringing up a very old movie. I wonder if Kyle has seen this movie because his lack of movies scares me sometimes. The quote by Steve Buscemi from Spy Kids, where he talks about, I wonder if
All
God
the shade being
doesn't.
thrown at me.
Well, you don't watch a lot of movies.
I
Uh,
do. I've seen
he
Spy
said,
Kids.
thank you.
I digress.
He said he wondered if God doesn't appear in front of us because he's afraid of his creations. And I like that idea. I like that there is actually no supernatural things in front of us, not because we can't see them, but because they don't want to be seen. They actually just they want to stay away from us because they actually are afraid of humanity themselves.
Would
What
be an
was that
interesting
last
take.
part?
What did you say, Kyle?
I said would be an interesting take, and Heaven wanted to hear that last part again.
Sorry,
I was saying,
it cut off on my audio.
uh, I actually heard you whispering things. I was like, is he praying right now? Is he praying for my dumbass soul? Am I going to hell?
Nah,
No.
I'll laugh at it.
Yeah, I'll drag you with me, bitch.
Hey, I'll still be laughing.
Of course you would. This will spite my ass. I was saying, I wonder if the reason why we don't see supernatural things is not because they don't exist or because they're not there. It's because of the fact that they don't want to be seen. They are afraid of us and our capabilities and our destructiveness, and so they just want to be left alone. The reason why everything's so elusive is because they want to stay elusive.
Well, think about it. If there's a devil, if there's a devil, then the devil does not want the best for us, right? So why in the world would the devil come out as the devil to a group of people that don't believe in him anyways? That's why you see like tribes in Africa that they believe very much in the supernatural because and that the devil doesn't hide in those more believing nations because they already believe that he exists. Whereas you have a group of people that are atheistic or something like that. If the devil is real and that's an objective truth, again, we're talking about like is this true or not? But let's assume that it is an objective truth, okay? And he does exist, and I'm using this because it's good, but I mean you could do the same thing for God too, like if shadow exists, light must exist too, kind of thing. So if one exists, the other does too, which is really really kind of crazy. But like in Argentina and Chile, people believe that there are those bad spirits, and so he walks around unmasked, right? Because why mask whenever people already know who you are? But in other places, let's take California, right? Or somewhere else, like why? Like people don't believe that he exists anyways, and so he can operate completely under the radar, And there's also that whole thing like you find what you're looking for too, you know, like like everything is going wrong in my life and this and this and this. Why is everything going wrong? There's a whole bunch of explanations for that. One of those is like, okay, maybe there is an influence in my life that's trying to make it so that I'm not happy. Maybe whenever I'm trying to do the right thing, because if there's a God and a devil, that means that there's also a right and a wrong, which is really kind of crazy too. Because if those two higher powers exist, that means that there's also a right and a wrong that's higher than just moral. It's like an objective right and wrong. There's a lot of things that maybe don't matter, but there's also an absolute truth of if it matters. Again, we're talking about the ifs, but like if it is, then that would naturally follow. It's like I don't know.
It
That's how I look at it.
it brings up the other idea. This is not an idea. This is a phrase I heard. I don't remember where I heard this from. I know I heard it forever ago. Um, it says that if you never see the devil in your life, it means you're doomed to go to hell because he's already expecting you. He has no reason to come about.
So
I don't
there
remember
was
where I heard this
one
from.
thing. There was one thing I wanted to expand on earlier. How you were saying the paranormal or supernatural or whatever higher beings might be scared of us. It doesn't present itself to us, but that's from our own perspectives. Because maybe some people. So going on a little bit on my perspective of things, we see. I'm a little more on the scientific. Uh,
Spectrum,
sorry, say that again.
scientific spectrum.
Kind
That's
of
where you're on.
scientific foundation.
Okay,
I'll
that's
say.
good.
I'm sitting on a scientific foundation, and we have this three-dimensional world for us to all explore. And essentially, that's so we exist in a 3D world. We see things in 2D, and we kind of experience things in other senses and stuff, but it's confined. If we had, if going along the concept of if we have a creator, it would have created the physics, the world, the dimensions, and everything.
Oh,
It would actually live outside of it. So you can't really prove uh, a supernatural being using science because it would live outside of the science that it would have created.
yeah, because it's such a
And
higher thing.
and if there's also malicious kind of paranormal, or I'll say superimposed extra dimensional beings, like maybe people actually have some sensories that some might be more developed than others, kind of like how people say they're mediums. Probably a lot of them probably fake, but some people probably true. But I always like to have a thought that there's more to our anatomy than just what science has told us so far. Keyword so far, because we're still studying the body. So I actually like to imagine this like four-dimensional piece of your own body, and then like you have demons that are also four-dimensional that we can't detect, and say you have like a demon that's attached to you. So I'm just have a funny picture in my mind that you have a four-dimensional sixth toe that a demon's just attached to and sucking on the life out of you just because it's there.
Like anime-esque, something that you can't see unless you have more pure eyes, but it's existing and it's totally latched onto you.
Kind of, yes.
That idea exists a
I
lot in
think that's true.
most Japanese mediums. The fact that the ignorant cannot see the supernatural, and only the people who not believers, but people who aren't oblivious will be able to see things outside their realm because they accept that there's something beyond themselves.
Well, it's not even about acceptance. It's just about people might be developed to a different point. The bodies might be more receptive in different ways.
There's also the whole thing of like, so I'm not sure if it's the ignorant that, so I think that people can be ignorant and be very educated. I think it's more the believing are the ones that see things. But I 100% agree. I think there's so much that we don't understand about the supernatural world, and like your whole idea of of a being that creates thing, you creating all the physics of this, but as being outside of it. I think that's precisely. I think that's 100% spot on. I look in ways and be like, I think that as we progress technologically and scientifically, that we approach God in a lot of ways. Like he's operating on things that we have not yet mastered or understood, right? If there's a God and he's all knowing, he understands how a black hole works. We can assume and we have theories, but we don't know what goes on, right? But he would,
Yeah.
or like, sweet, Jesus walks on water. Well, that shouldn't happen. Buoyancy doesn't. He ain't a witch. Like, how's he doing that? Like that like how But what if there are physical laws that are on such a higher plane that works? What is
Turns
a
out
miracle
Jesus is just
except
hydrophobic.
something? But like, what is a miracle but something that happens that we don't understand? Like magic to us is something that Matt. It would be if we were to show a person in the Middle Ages a phone, that would be magic. We'd probably be killed because of heresy, something crazy, because it'd be witchcraft, right? But what if a nation that was so much further advanced than us showed us the same thing? Like something of equivalent nature. We'd be like, whoa, this is magic. No, it's not magic. It's laws. It's technology. It's progress. It's things that we've done.
Equals
Like, and if
fear.
you just keep going up and up, you eventually come to that God character.
Or what
The
if Jesus and God were extraterrestrials?
I mean, you could think about it like that.
Careful. We're not getting to that subject this episode. That's next episode. But on that topic,
Fine,
I have
fine.
to head downstairs and get ready
Oh,
for
yeah,
my Thanksgiving
sorry.
dinner. No, we're all good. And I also want to bring out this phrase, as in like every media ever, people fear what they don't understand, as always.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's everywhere. But Kyle, cue outro.
Thanks all for joining us on 2.5 Dads with Heaven, me, Crispin, and Nexus, our host here. And hit like, subscribe, comment, do all the algorithm things, because if you don't, the basilisk is going to be in your gaze.
Ooh.
Really? We're gonna just put that in people's minds?
Well, of course. That's the entire topic that we talked about today, so might as well.
No,
Very
he's
true.
completely right. Good job. I love it.